In this section, we will look at how to simplify, add, and subtract polynomials. Let's begin by simplifying polynomials. A simplified polynomial is one where all of its like terms have been combined. Remember, when looking for like terms, only the coefficients may differ. So, to combine those like terms, you keep the variables with the same exponents together. So in this first example, we check the variables to see if we have like terms. So we have an x to the first power and an x to the first power. Therefore, they must be like terms. So we are going to combine those coefficients. And since our operation here is addition, we are going to add the exponents together. So 2 plus 6 gives us the 8, and you keep that same like term to get 8x. Now, over in this second example, again, we want to find any like terms. So we begin by looking at the variables. So we have x squared and y squared. Now, we move on to the second term to see if that is a like term. So we have x squared, which is a good start. However, we only have y to the first power here. Therefore, we know that cannot be a like term with the first term. So we move on to the third term. We have x squared, which is good, and y squared, which is good. So we know that this first term and the third term are like terms. So those are the ones we are going to be combining. So again, when you combine like terms, you combine the coefficients and keep the same like term, the variables part of it, the same. So we had 12, and you want to do the same operation, so we had a negative 4, or subtracting 4, and you kept that like term the same, and then you don't want to forget about this other term here, and you still add that on to the polynomial. So when you simplify, we have 12 minus 4, which is 8, with that like term of x squared, y squared, and then plus that 3x squared y. Now let's look at adding polynomials. When you add polynomials together, you look for any like terms and add those terms together. So as you can see here, we have two polynomials that have parentheses around them. However, since we are working with addition, and addition can be written in any order, this is basically saying that we're distributing a positive 1 to each of these terms. So this can all be written without the use of parentheses. Now, we are going to go through and try to find any terms that are like terms. So as you can see, this gold term we found, they each have an x to the first power. Therefore, they are like terms. However, there aren't any other x squared, so that one doesn't have a like term. And then keep in mind that any constants are always considered like terms. So going down to this next line, 5x squared didn't have any like terms, so that just stays the same. But now we have to look at combining the 7x plus the 4x. So we add its coefficient together, so 7 plus 4x, and that gives us 11x. And then looking at the coefficients, as this polynomial had, 3 minus 2 gives us 1. So we have our final answer of 5x squared plus 11x plus 1. Subtracting polynomials is very similar to adding polynomials, where you look for the like terms and you subtract them from each other. So, notice here we have two polynomials that are being subtracted. And recall that subtracting is the same as adding a negative. So imagine this is really adding a negative 1 right here, and so we need to distribute that negative 1 to each term in this polynomial. So you can see that has been done over here. We're adding, and the 6y squared became a negative 6y squared, the negative 3y became a positive 3y, and the positive 1 became a negative 1. Now the next step is to look for all like terms. Again, when you find like terms, the variable must be the same and the exponent must be the same. So we have our y squared terms, which that gives us 8y squared minus 6y squared. So 8 minus 6y squared leaves us with 2y squared, as you can see down in our final answer. And then the next term we are noticing to be similar are the y terms. So we have 5y and 3y. So again, we are adding those coefficients, so 5 plus 3y is going to equal 8y. Again, as you see it being done here, and in the final answer we get our 8y. Now, our last terms that we notice in common are our constant terms. So we have a negative 2 and a negative 1 that are being added together. So, as you see right here, negative 2 plus a negative 1 will give us a negative 3. So our final answer is 2y squared plus 8y minus 3.